Good evening, everyone. This is Chad, and this is Trey. Trey for Life. He has a YouTube channel. Please check it out. It's got a lot of good content. He's one of the other ENTJs on YouTube that I'm sure you've seen around. He's been posting for like 4 years here and there. Took all his videos off several times because he thought they sucked, which I've done myself.
Yeah.
Then I started taking my videos off, and then I left them on now. So all my videos are, even if they do suck, they're still up there, and you can critique them and dislike. That's fine. All right. So with that being said, Trey just posted some videos today about being obsessed with Myers-Briggs, and a lot of people may think that it's a bogus or it's a bunch of crap, or a lot of people may think that you're obsessed and not everybody fits into a box. And he had just posted a video about this, and you can check it out on his channel. Your channel's Trey 4L, right?
Yeah, Trey 4L.
Yeah, so you just check that video out. He talks a lot about that. He's going ad lib about some of the perspective that people offer in the sense of that when they do explore Myers-Briggs or any other personality thing, and finding out about yourself, because one of the first things about growing as a person is being able to identify with yourself and being able to realize some of your shortcomings and areas to improve. And that's an area of my life particularly where Myers-Briggs stepped in, because my entire life I felt like an alien. I didn't understand. I thought I was different, and and I was in my own weird way. But at the same time, I thought there was something wrong with me, and I said, "What is going on? Like, why can't I relate to someone? Why do I have to be this way? Why is everybody else that way? Or why is everybody else this way?" And I thought it was, and everybody around me didn't understand psychology, and they thought there was something wrong with me too. My parents thought something was wrong with me. Everybody thought there was something just purely wrong. So I want Trey to kind of go into details about that. So Trey, what provoked you and what inspired you to create this video? Was there a particular event that set you off?
Yeah, see, what happened was I was at a friend's house, and I was trying to rise up in leadership in like a church. And the church actually endorses Myers-Briggs. They use it, like the staff, like they all take the test, you know, they all get to know like each other's personalities, and apparently they donate money to Myers-Briggs. So, you know, when I found out about this, I got like really excited. If you know everyone's type, it's like really cool. It's a really experimental like area where you know where everyone's coming from, and you get to know each type better. So I really wanted to start, engaging in this and being able to communicate with all of them, and to show that that there was like another level of depth, because what they were following was just these are the four letters, and if you want to go look up what that means, you can go do that. And it wasn't showing that really what Myers-Briggs is the way that people perceive information and make decisions. And so I want to bring that and show them function stacks, the cognitive functions. And what happened was, I presented like this idea to them, and I wanted them to see that I had something to offer. And I was talking to an ESTJ, and he apparently, this is something I had heard, he didn't really like he thought that I was obsessed. He saw that I was showing him all this, and he saw it as obsession. And that's probably because before I went into the meeting, I totally forgot that he's a sensor, and I didn't think about how I would lay things out. So I was giving him my intuitive load, and he just had to see what he could do with it. And so that was a problem in communication. And so he saw me talking, and he just thought I was obsessed, thought I had a problem. And so at this point, I felt as if I had ruined my chances of, actually becoming a part of this environment where I could learn more about MBTI. And I was kind of upset. Huh?
Where did you prelude the conversation? I mean, did you just start giving him all the facts, or did you actually prelude the conversation and talk about like, the history of MBTI and what success it has with organizations and the workshops and the things like that as well? Because that generally is what a lot of people who prefer sensing need to hear before they start hearing all the theoretical stuff.
Yeah, see, I didn't I didn't even think about that. I totally forgot, because he had told me his type before the meeting. I totally forgot to like really go over the way I would do it.
Right.
And so, I pretty much just gave him the whole theoretical load. Yeah. And I thought I didn't really need to explain that it was good for the environment and stuff, because they already use MBTI in their environment. Right. But there was so much more depth to understand, because they're still going by the, this is my label, go research what that means, and just having like a behavioral type idea of what people are and who they are. And I wanted to take that away, because, if you can understand the way that they're actually perceiving the information, making the decisions, you can understand who they are and why they do what they do. So.
Right. And the interesting part about MBTI is when someone's typed, they're typed based on their own perspective of themselves and how they actually perceive information. So it has an astounding accuracy, and not in guessing and predicting what you're going to do, but ultimately in how you perceive information, how you take in information. So when we realize that people are typed as a sensing preference, that's what they prefer. So they prefer those facts and concrete data. And one of the reasons why this video is important is, I think, is because it gives you you as the audience, it gives you a perspective of, this is how I need to communicate with people who have this preference. So for an example, in Trey's situation, talking to an ESTJ, they probably would want to hit him to prelude what his theoretical points were with facts or data or a track record of success in that particular angle. Pointing that he might have been obsessed with this particular thing, like, okay, you're obsessed and you've given me all this useless information, versus narrowing it down to the very details and building sequentially to the point that Trey was trying to make in that particular conversation.
And so, yeah, I did, because I didn't really communicate to him very well, it was my fault, but I was a little bit upset because I had been labeled as obsessed, and that wasn't really the case. It's just so, the information is so critical, and so, so much good information. And, really, Chad, your videos were the ones that really boosted me into like a much deeper understanding, because no one had really gone over, how each function interacted. And you go into Chad's videos and you look at, he's got videos on extroverted feeling, introverted feeling, extroverted thinking, introverted thinking. I think he's got intuition as well, but I don't think he covered sensing. But the point is, watching those really, really helped me understand how each one behaved, because all I saw on YouTube was like a very brief description.
Right.
And, your videos offered me such more depth. And so then I started learning, a deeper level of Myers-Briggs, and it just really changed how I saw people. So.
Well, I think personally, both of us being NTJs, we find that obsession is actually it's complementary to me, being obsessed with something, because it's going to give me a profound knowledge on something that's going to be able to help us accelerate forward in life, whether it's in business, whether it's with people, whether it's being able to read people or perceive people, or to learn how to cater to those people and help them improve in life in general. I think that's a huge advantage for people who study Myers-Briggs. In fact, there was a study released by Myers-Briggs, I believe, and it said the average high school student, senior in high school, I believe it was 2 years ahead in maturity than when they studied Myers-Briggs. 2 years ahead.
Yeah.
And because they're looking at cognitive development, they're looking at areas to improve. They're looking at, okay, what areas am I weak in feeling, for example? You and I are both introverted feelers. And so I have to process my feelings, and it takes a while because it's introverted. It has subjectivity involved. It's not like I'll instantly know how I feel about something immediately, especially with its unfamiliarity and deep in the unconscious mind. It's like, why am I feeling this way? I don't know. So I have to spend time in thinking about it. Whereas previously, I didn't know anything about Myers-Briggs, and you would see somebody in the public, and they would just instantly know how they feel about something, and they have that immediate reaction where they're like, oh, I feel this way and this, and they're able to articulate the way they feel. Whereas I never could do that effectively.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't feel like there's words to explain how I feel right now. And I don't know how to capture what's going on. And I think that was a huge thing about Myers-Briggs, and why being obsessed to me is actually a healthy thing. Because that obsession actually can push you forward in growth. So when someone says you're obsessed, I'll be, absolutely. I am obsessed with the things that I study. And I said, you can dabble into it and you can learn a little bit, or you can be very good at it, and then you can offer and contribute to someone else's life. I mean, what do you think about that?
Oh, yeah. I think that I definitely agree. It's like, it's a good thing to know so much and just to go in such depth, because you're mastering a skill. You're mastering all this knowledge. You're learning so much. And, I still learn. I still all the time. I tell people on my channel, I'm like, man, go add me on Instagram at Trey4L. Go ahead. You can call me. Because what I want this constant questioning, where people can ask me questions and get me thinking, so that I can come up with further ideas and understand MBTI a little bit better.
Right.
And that those questions can really help with that. But what really bothered me in the moment was that someone had told me that they had heard me say that I was obsessed, and this is okay. It didn't like disturb me or anything, and I want to throw that out there because I didn't really know I'd be talking about that. But it's just I felt like my chances were ruined to actually show him that I wasn't obsessed, because I didn't know any other way to prove myself to be a part of the community. You know what I mean? And so I was really trying to show him I had something to offer. And because he didn't explain it, he just wrote me off as obsessed, and that's okay. But I think that he may be in the wrong. I was in the wrong with my communication, the style that I chose. But I definitely know quite a bit, and I have so much to offer in that area because of all the time that I dedicate towards Myers-Briggs, and furthering myself and furthering others. And it's really amazing because you see these different people, and I type them and I find out what they are. And I remember I used to write people off. Like, ENFPs have this amazing ability when it comes to like social ideas, right? Like understanding what people are thinking and stuff. They're really good with that. And so me, I didn't know that. And there was this kid, and I honestly didn't see him as very intelligent. Like, he hadn't really blown me away ever. We hadn't had like great conversations, but we were friends. So we're sitting there, and I had noticed something socially, and I was sharing it with him. He's like, "You just pulled the words out of my brain, and you just spoke them." And I was like, "That's bullcrap." In my mind, I was like, "That's bullcrap. Move on. Let me explain further." But then, now I know that I wrote him off too soon, and he probably did understand that, and I just wrote it off because I didn't want him to take credit when he hadn't studied and I had been studying. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, it really helps me as well, because I see these different types and the potential they have, and I see the direction they're headed in, and I can kind of guide them towards a better direction where they can actually use their skills and develop better as a person.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest advantage of really getting into MBTI is just, even if it's some of the theory changes, I think it still allows a self-awareness and a self-exploratory, really throws you into this exploration of yourself. And I think that's a huge part what inspired me about MBTI. There was another video you posted, changing gears real quick. There's another video you posted about the mystery of, being
mental mystery.
The mental mystery of NTJ. And I'll tell you that I personally related to that video a lot. And
go over it just so that they know what we're talking about.
Yeah. And so basically this video Trey had posted, I guess it was a few days ago, maybe a little longer, maybe a week, but this video essentially was talking about this awareness, and this awareness of what is actually going into your head, what is happening at any time, and it's an awareness that I felt like not very many people had. I personally have thought about it my entire life. And, Trey was one of the first videos where I've seen somebody else actually bring that up without actually talking to me. And so with that being said, my INTJ business partner, he always talks about having this 10-foot, 30-foot, 20-foot, the number changes, but this long antenna of knowing everything that's going on around you and being aware of it. It's an awareness, and it's not like a sensory awareness, like, hey, I know this phone is here, this is here, this is here, this is here. You just have this awareness that I feel like you understand that's not just sensory, it's everything. Like
what I was saying in my video, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
What I was saying in my video was that, I had heard previously that my phone, that phones, and the radio waves in the air can, if they're too close to, like, some women put their phones in their bra, and, I heard that you can actually get breast cancer. Right. And I heard that, it could kill sperm in the pocket. And so knowing that information, I'm sitting there on the couch, and I would feel it. Like, I would feel this, this phone and the waves it was giving off. And I'd be like, oh, wow, like, I need to move this away from me. You know what I mean?
That's what I mean. It's an awareness, and it's not like a sensory awareness, like you're actually feeling the waves, but you have this new awareness that was inputted into your brain. And then, like, it's unconscious even. And to me, I've only found that introverted intuitives are the people who preference introverted intuition are the ones that are really doing that. There's people who are cognitively bringing that into consciousness. Oh, I can't keep my phone here, but somehow you just know, like, I just can't have this here. And it's not, and you may do it even unconsciously. You just move it away and you're not even thinking about it.
Yeah.
It's just an unconscious reaction to information that's been put in your brain, because the way that we see the world as introverted intuitives is this large world unreasonable framework. It can't be confined to reason. It's just an understanding of everything. It's an entire worldview, and it's a convergent worldview versus an extroverted intuitive, or somebody who has introverted sensing. Introverted sensing is also a convergent worldview on a particular history of things, of sensory data, whereas introverted intuition is of the worldview of the abstract. And then introverted thinking is worldview that's basically bound to logic. It has to fall within reason. It's a framework. So all these introverted functions have a view or perspective that is bound in some way. As introverted feeling, we feel that there's a world of knowledge or world of values out there that shouldn't be violated, regardless of what society says. And even if society or a group of people say that value is wrong, but an introverted feeler feels like that is a universal value, it still won't change dependent on what society says. Whereas an extroverted feeler may say, you know what, that's for the better of people if I bended this value to accommodate these people. Not that introverted feelers are incapable of bending. It's just that introverted feeling in itself is pretty stubborn.
Oh yeah, definitely. What do you mean by bound when it came to intuition and thinking and sensing?
Okay, so
because I understand with the feeling, it's like strong and it's built up, but
okay, so you've got your introverted thinking, which is bound by reason. What that means is that reason is what builds the introverted thinking framework. It has to fall within reason. Let me give you an example.
Oh, okay, yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
but
so
you go ahead and give an example.
Yeah, just for viewers' sake. You have an introverted thinker. Let's say that everything has to be logical. It has to be sequential. Has to make sense. It has to make sense in a logical, or it has to be able to be deducted into proof. Okay, so in an argument with a person who preferences introverted thinking can get into this discussion. Let's say the common atheism versus Christianity argument for sake. Okay, the atheist will if they're using TI and they're active in TI and TI is active in consciousness, they're very likely to say that someone is bound by a burden of proof. If you have faith, you have to have a burden of proof. Whereas the intuitive, let's say it's an introverted intuitive who's a believer, will say that you think that I have to have proof, but do I really have to have proof for me?
Yeah.
And that's the consequence of the argument, and nobody's going to convince anybody. I mean, the person says, well, you're stuck with the burden of proof. According to who? Does the law make me have to prove my belief? No.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, so there's a point where that's essentially introverted thinking, placing a judgment criteria on a perception, which is introverted intuition, which I've fallen in those conversations before, and I remain relatively I don't really form an anger or get upset about it. I just say, hey, look, this conversation isn't going to go anywhere because you have this belief, I have that belief, and it's not going to change because I don't bound what I see by reason.
Yeah.
And versus introverted thinking as a dominant function, it has to fall within reason. Whereas an INTP who is a believer is going to want to prove their own conclusions all the time. This can't be true. This can't be true. This can be true. This can be true. This has to be true because of this, this, and this. So that it has to be in reason. So a person who has uses introverted thinking active in consciousness may have to look back and go, oh, here's the burden of proof that I need to believe this particular thing. Whereas an intuitive goes, that makes a lot of sense in itself, and I see how that can fit with this. So I'm going to just take this and believe it because it fits with this. And that's all we need. We don't actually have to go, okay, this particular thing has to be proven in itself.
No, I'm busy.
Sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah, so that's
okay. I was gonna say, so since we're talking about introverted functions, right? A lot of times I explain introverted intuition versus extroverted intuition as a tidal wave, right? And for the extroverted intuitive, it's as if they ride the tidal wave, and for the introverted intuitive, it's like they watch it. You know what I mean? Like so for an introverted intuitive, they would sit back and watch the wave and where it lands and just go, oh, okay, got my information. And extroverted intuitive is like writing all the possibilities, just like looking down on all of them. What do you think about that? Is it subconscious? Is it a subconscious thing, intuition?
Well, introverted intuition is the closest thing to the unconscious mind.
Okay.
In the sense of actual cognitive behavior. It's very close, apparently, to the brainstem, the hindbrain. So, as far as I know, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not 100% on that, but as far as I've read, it's the closest thing to the unconscious mind. So, bringing it into consciousness, it actually takes a disengagement from reality to get introverted intuition to actually start working in consciousness. Otherwise, it works at random moments when we disengage from reality. You'll find that a lot of people who preference introverted intuition, they don't space out, like in the sense of like they're like in all over the place. They get this zone, they get this Zen-like mode where they just tune everything out and they get super laser focused on one particular thing. And I may, like this pen, for example, you may find me at some random morning just staring at this pen. Is it the pen that I'm actually thinking about? No, it's not the pen.
Could be the universe.
It could be the universe. And I'll just stare at it and I'm analyzing it and I'm looking at it. And it's not so much the pen itself, it's what the pen could be, what it represents, what it reminds me of. And I'm reflecting on that as an introvert. And I literally check out from my surroundings, like the sounds, the sights, everything kind of just, they fade away. And I get so zoned in on that thing that I may not hear a conversation that's going on that's happening right in front of me. As I've gotten older, it's gotten easier to do that, to check out actively. I can just decide to check out.
That's awesome. That's
yeah, but that took, and it wasn't like I worked on it. It just, I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten more comfortable with more of my functions, and it just kind of happened over a period of time where I can just literally like start checking out. And most society will tell you, well, checking out isn't a good thing, but it's like getting in this focused Zen-like mode. Like I'll be working on something. Let's say, I like to make clothes in my spare time. So I'm working on a particular article or of clothing or a garment. And I'm working on that thing. And as I'm thinking, I'm seeing the stitching, right? I'm seeing the stitching and and I get into this reflective mode where everything else just zones out. I can see
all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just zones into this very specific exact moment. And it's not even present reality. Like my mind is just out there. I'm not even thinking about this anymore, even though my body's still reacting to that because of muscle memory and whatever else. But my brain is not even there. And that can happen in the middle of a conversation. It can happen at any given time. Somebody's talking and, and I just boom, checked out and I'm thinking about something else and it's a reflection. And that's a lot of that introverted intuition. Whereas extroverted intuition, it doesn't check out. It actually grabs a hold of the possibilities in the external environment and looks at what can be done with those possibilities. So a lot of extroverted intuitives, I believe, are being diagnosed with ADHD because they're actively looking at possibilities they can work with in the environment at a very rapid pace, whereas introverted intuition is much slower. And so that's the big difference between those two different things, is looking at that is extroverted intuition is very present moment, looking at future possibility, whereas introverted intuition is just disengaged from the present moment altogether. Yeah. It has to disengage from the present moment, and it's not looking at possibilities in this right present moment. So you'll find that like people, this is a really interesting topic here. You'll find that a lot of SE people who have SE, that's their opportunistic edge. Okay. That's what makes people smooth in the moment and very quick in the moment. Okay. Is that SE, looking at present possibilities and being able to act and react to the present moment and seeing an opportunity right in front of you. Whereas extroverted intuition, it doesn't act at that opportunity right in front of you, but what that opportunity could become. And then introverted intuition will reflect on it hours, days, weeks, months, years later. I could have done this. I could have done this, and this would have resulted in this and this, and then it would have compounded into this ultimate. If I would have done this, this is what would have happened.
Yeah. But
it's not quick.
I always see INTJs as like the ultimate like calculators. You know what I mean? Like they're always calculating their current situation, and they lock themselves up and they really just focus on whether it be relationships or work or whatever. Like they're always focusing on how they can maintain everything and make everything better. And I just feel like they really use that introverted intuition at the top, their dominant function, and and they really just, they need their time alone so that they can think about their feelings, how they feel about a situation, and then as well as, that intuition, really planning everything out. I was gonna say, I've definitely noticed, when I get to work on something, and it's something that I do a lot. I used to push carts at a grocery store. When I would push those carts, I wasn't even thinking about what was happening anymore. It's like right when I get in the mode of where it's a routine, it's like maybe where sensors, they really learn the routine better. I think once intuitives get a hold of the routine, they're gone. They're like, I think I can maintain the routine pretty well. Now I'm gonna start thinking about everything else. You know what I mean? And so intuitives will kind of check out and start.
I would say that's somewhat true. The only thing is, you got to remember, introverted intuition, extroverted intuition act totally differently. And so when you say intuitives,
I totally forgot.
Yeah, and so I would say that NJs, it's the NJs that are ones that check out. Yeah, and the NPs, on the other hand, they're the ones that they do space out, but they space out in a different way. They don't go into this Zen-like mode. They go into this very rapid firing, think of it like a machine gun idea mode. And they can go off into a bunny trail real quick.
Yeah.
And they're very creative. They have this creative ability that a lot of NJs just can't muster. They can't bring it to surface like an NP can. And mainly because they don't have that rapid, here's a good example. STPs, especially ESTPs, are very good in present reality. And they come up with a million ways to take advantage of an opportunity and take advantage of it in the present moment. NPs do this, but with possibilities. And so in their head, they're creating these possibilities, these bunny trails very rapidly, not necessarily even reacting to what's going on in reality, but doing it with intuition, doing it in a very different way. Whereas NJs are not necessarily as quick in the moment, unless they've developed a lot of extroverted sensing. They just do not have that type of speed naturally. In like a conversation, for example, someone who's witty or very quick, people with SE that have a stronger version of SE or have developed SE, and I'm not saying all STPs have really strong SE. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying people who have developed SE tend to be quicker and more wittier in a conversation than a person who has not developed that SE. Because if you don't develop the SE, your primary perception function is going to be NI as an NJ. And NI is very slow, so you'll get caught a lot not being able to react in the moment. And this is a reason why a lot of INTJs like to avoid things that pop up, and they want to create contingencies for everything because they don't want to have to react in the moment. And whereas big problem for NJs, and I'm going to bring this up because it's also really critical, is in the dating world, NJs struggle a lot. And I say this because they're using intuition primarily, and not to mention, so you have 20% of the population, let's just say 25% of the population as an intuitive preference. NJs see the world in a manner of patterns, meanings and data, and perceptions. They see it in a very, very pattern-oriented way. And so when they communicate, I can be talking about one thing, and you're going to see me go from this point. In my natural mode, I'll be going from one point, and then all of a sudden I'm over here. And then I'm going on this point, and then I'll bounce back right here, and I'll continue this point. And that conversation can actually really frustrate someone who has a sensing preference, because it sounds like you're all over the place, number one, and you're not. You're actually you're running multiple trails, building a big picture. So you're building the perimeter of this big picture. Whereas a person with sensing preference, you have to build a straight line, hit each point, straight line, hit each point, straight line, hit each point. A person with intuition preference, like me, for example, I'll paint the whole outside of the picture first. And if they still don't get it, I'll start filling in details to try to get them to see the picture that way, as my natural preference. Now, because of MBTI and developing, what we really do is we try to learn as intuitives how to speak in a more of a sensing oriented way. So in the dating world, when you're giving this conversation in a very intuitive conversation, especially NJs, it can be very intense. It's like, what is the point? What is the meaning in what you just said? And so this is what can actually make people feel a little bit intimidated by NJs, especially NTJs, is because we want the big picture. We can ask you a question, and that question can be what do you do for a living? And they'll say, I do this, but that doesn't give me what I'm really wanting. What I really want is the big picture. How is it contributing to your life? What do you expect to do? What are your goals? How are you going to get there? Are you happy? Are you this? And I want that inner meeting. So I start asking very intense questions. Although I don't see them as intense, I know they are in the public perception. I feel like it's just a way to get to know somebody in a very deep way very quickly. Whereas a lot of people who are not intuitive preferences will build up to those intense questions through a line of questioning.
Oh yeah.
That's a
I
little
can
more,
I
that
can
makes people a
definitely
little more
see that.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that a lot of times, you know, I'll just I feel like to get to know somebody on a deeper level and to get to that depth, you have to be able to talk about all the deep things. And so for me, I'm ready to talk about everything. I know exactly how I'm going to say it. I've thought it over. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I have it all planned back here. And so when you ask me, what about this? I already know what I'm going to say. I've already planned it. I already have it together. I can tell you that, or I can just tell you without you asking me. And what I'm trying to do is get on a deeper level. So I'll let you know, and then I'll ask them. You know what I mean? And then they're just like, oh, well, I'm not really comfortable telling you that. And I'm like, why? And it hasn't come up a lot. Usually people are pretty cool about it,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes they're just like, I don't really understand why I should tell you that yet. Like, I don't know you very well. And I'm like, well, I don't really understand, because me, I'm trying to get to know them better. Like, I'm showing that I'm going to
Right.
trust them with this information. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I can definitely see that. I don't really think it's necessarily just with sensors, but I see what you were getting at there.
Yeah, that's one point. That's one point, and it's just that it's not even just sensors. It's also extroverted intuitives. It's the introverted intuitives, the NJs, who can appear intense because they want that information. They want that big global understanding. Whereas NFJs are not as intense in the sense of getting that information because they know how to make people feel comfortable with that FE.
Yeah.
NTJs, on the other hand, are the pretty hardcore ones in getting to know people, because we go from one point of line of questioning to another line of questioning to get that big understanding of what encompasses that person in the shortest period of time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and we
Understanding
want
them
to
on a deep level.
in the shortest period of time because of TE.
Yeah.
We want to make it efficient. It's like, how fast can I actually get to know you as a person?
And the thing is,
And
I think that's good because when you can learn a lot about a person, later on when there's a conflict, you can understand why they made that decision instead of,
Mhm.
just having this intense moment of like being frustrated because something happened and not necessarily knowing why. But for them, it's this mental block because of, their past or whatever it is. And so it can bring up issues. And so I guess for us, we're trying to make it efficient so that never happens and we can understand them. So we try
Right.
to get to know them on a deeper level.
And also, I think part of it is also, we also want to be able to predict them. We want to understand their patterns. We want to see where they're going, and we want to be able to predict their behavior to help them. Like, here's what's going to happen. We got to remember, as an NTJ, we're always building our worldview. So by asking questions, we're also expanding that our perspective of the world.
Yeah.
And it's that introverted intuition perspective. In addition, we've spent our entire lives of building this perspective, that make it hard for an NTJ specifically to have approach anxiety. Approach anxiety being, hey, I'm going to talk to a girl or whatever, or a guy if you're an NTJ, or a female NTJ, and you're going to walk up to somebody and you're just going to kind of act in the moment. NTJs don't do that. We're calculating. Here's what's going to happen if I say this, and here's what's going to happen if I say this. Here's what's going to happen if I say this. Okay, so this is the best line of approach because I've ruled this out based on what I understand. And so whereas somebody who prefers SE, extroverted sensing, doesn't have a plan. They don't calculate. They act in the moment. And so INTJs struggle more with this than even ENTJs because their SE is more unconscious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say, when it comes to talking to girls and stuff, I definitely find myself, I need someone that's so honest. You know what I mean? Extremely honest
Mm-hmm.
to everything, because I know I'm not gonna get them like emotionally wounded. If you don't like me, then tell me, let me know, because I don't want to keep trying to do something and make myself look stupid, right? And so
Right.
for me, I'm trying to talk to this girl, and I want her to be 100% honest. If she totally likes me, if she's totally into me, then I can start predicting how it's gonna roll out, and I can start making decisions. But if I'm not entirely sure, you know what I mean, then I don't really know what to do in the moment. So I just kind of like I'm like trying to get to know them better so that maybe they'll,
Right.
open up to a level where I think that they've accepted
Hmm.
or trust me now. And so, that's one thing I can definitely see. But I was going to ask you a question. Do you think that when it comes to the way that you see relationships, do you think, because I've talked about this on my channel before, I really see relationships as, I'm going to help you with this. And so when I'm really in the moment and I've got lots of stuff stressing me and everything's just falling apart, those people that I've helped and those people that I've built relationships with, I can start asking them for help on different aspects of it, and it all kind of lines up, and it's like a very non-stressful way of dealing with your problems, because you just tell them, man, I have got so much on my plate right now, is there any way you could help me with this? And it's like in those very stressful moments where I can't tackle it all myself, I rely on those relationships I've been building up, and which ones have which skills. Like I'll see, well, this one would do better with helping me, like, run down on this test before I take it because I've been juggling everything else. You know what I mean? And just
Hmm.
you know which types are in the best positions to help. Do you think that you do that?
Uh, I do have a network of people that I count on, but as far as for the purpose of meeting that person, I would say that generally there is a calculated purpose, and it sounds bad, but honestly, there's
Yeah.
generally a calculated person of why I want this person in my life. Now, granted, it's not because this person's an engineer or whatever. It's because I like this person, and I want to
Yeah.
help this person in whatever way I can. But at the same time, they have skills that can help me. It's a that bit of narcissism that I talk about in my other videos as well. Is that we all have it, and we just got to be honest with it and say, okay, if I can contribute to this person's life, I always try to give first before I expect to receive anything. I hate asking for something without actually giving first. To
Yeah,
me, it's a fair
definitely.
barter. And so I always offer my help first, or try to. But I don't really tap into my network for the resources. I go into the relationship expecting that I'm going to use this particular skill set for something, but I never actually use it. Instead, I just have these people in my network, and I just check on them and talk to them and contribute to their life. And I find that I actually never use it, even though that my original intention might have been, this person has this ability, or this person's a computer engineer. It'd be good to keep him around because he's good with computers. That's not that may have been an original thought, but as I got to know that person, it's like I find that there's a lot more to that person, and I don't think I really count on them like that now. And specifically, I think this is an Enneagram difference too. Is I prefer to take challenges on myself.
Yeah.
Um, I don't like to
And I rely on
necessarily.
my image and what people
Yeah,
think of me to be able to. Yeah,
yeah, and I think that that's part of it. But as far as like,
definitely. I mean, I
from an,
could see. Sorry.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I could definitely see it, because if I've worked on my image, because I'm a 3, right? And I've worked on
Hmm.
my image and built it up so that when I talk with people, they'll see me as a great guy, and I'll present myself in the best way. You don't care, so you'll just
Right.
present yourself how you really are at the moment, and so
Hmm.
you wouldn't really have a reason, or necessarily even maybe as good a network. You know what I mean? Because for
Right.
me, I've invested more energy um, into looking like I don't get pissed easy, looking like I am intelligent, whatever it is, just really trying to build this image of myself, um,
Right.
where I try to cover everything, sense of style, that I'm there for people, stuff like that, so that they see me as an well-rounded good person. And it's also kind of sad because we all have our struggles, and so people are like, I'm like, they get mad sometimes because they're like, it just looks like you've got everything together, and I don't really know how to usually now I can answer that and say, well, you probably have a lot better, an easier time talking to girls, and I don't. So you know that's the struggle I have, the FE, being able to determine how other people feel, where I have to understand them on that deeper level. I'm looking for more depth in the whole person, and in order to understand them. And so I usually, now I know. It took me a while to understand, because originally I didn't feel like I just felt like I was sort of intelligent. I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. I didn't feel like I had a lot going for me. And then I started finding my strengths. And then I was like, no one's perfect. What are my weaknesses? And they always said, like, oh, ENTJs aren't so good with feeling. And I felt like I was more of an emotional ENTJ. And so I was like, You know, I can understand my feelings. You know what I mean? I go home, you know, I think about things. I have these moments where I'm like really in depth with myself. So I mean, I felt like, you know, I was more in touch. But when I recognized the whole eight functions, all eight functions in the entire stack, you know, I recognized that, you know, expressing that is a whole other level. So
Right.
really
And it's
recognize
because
it.
we don't have that FE to really find a way to express it. We express our feeling truthfully through TE most of the time.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. The way that NTJ specifically express the way they feel about the world is through action. And it's not through performance. It's not through a certain way. It's like for example, my business is a representation of me. And the way that I express myself is by driving values in my organization.
Yeah.
And through systems. It's through systems. I found a way to capture the way I feel about things and do it through systems to make that and that's my way of expressing myself. And I think that's what really truly guides a lot of NTJs to business, is because they feel like if they're in someone else's organization, they can't truly reflect what's going on in the inside.
Yeah. I think
And they
I've,
can't really truly express those things. Whereas, you know, and then that's our first extroverted function. So that's what we extrovert is those core values. And you know, SE is it's more unconscious for NTJs. So SE is one area where NTJs can kind of get stopped up a little bit, because if we learn to in the future start expressing the way that we feel about things through SE versus TE, so it's a little more action oriented through whether it's through sports or whether it's through something else. It's a little more action oriented in the moment, not so much systems oriented. It's like in the moment action oriented. Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to play this. I'm going to be a performer here, or I'm going to be a performer there. But ultimately, SE is so unconscious that we can get tripped up by that, because if we're operating in NI, we're not going to be very fast in the moment. We're more comfortable dealing with unexpected changes in the moment than say an INTJ. ENTJs, we're a
oh
little
yeah.
more comfortable dealing with that. INTJs do not like things popping up in the moment, because that SE is just so unconscious. It makes them very uncomfortable. Somebody says something really sideways, INTJs kind of get like thrown off by it,
Yeah.
you know, whereas ENTJs might toss it around and handle it a little bit differently,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
be a little more witty or have a good comeback or instantly, whereas ESTPs are notorious for having the wittiest comebacks. Yeah, and it's just because their SE is so high and it's backed by TI logic. So
Yeah.
they can really smooth over a situation backed with FE, which is accommodating. So they're charming. They can be a lot more. They can use all those three in a social dynamic. So ESTPs are probably the most socially adept naturally of all the types, and it's because
Okay.
they have the perfect combination of social interaction as ESTPs. And
Are there? I don't want to draw it out. Are there feelings near the bottom, or are they the third function?
it's their tertiary.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that really is pretty balanced.
Yeah,
Wow.
and they're very, very good at being charming. They use that FE to serve their TI need. The TI has a purpose. It has a judgment. It has an idea, and it has SE, which is very good at taking advantage of cues in the environment and acting on them. And so they're very fast in conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
and so go ahead.
so I was definitely going to comment on how you said that INTJs were not so good with in the moment things. I've noticed that, you know, for INTJs that I've gotten close to, really toning down is the way you should approach them, because I know that a lot of INTJs like memes. I personally think it's just a waste of time, but just think about it. Like, they're still really comedic people. So, you know, in a certain situation, they love to troll. You know, they're planning out, how can I enjoy myself right now? Well, if I say this, it'll frustrate them, and I've seen them do that. But then, you know, if you just wait for them to make that decision where they're going to go into like having a good time, because a lot of times, if I just jump up to an INTJ and do something retarded, they can't handle that. You know what I mean? They're
Hmm.
like, they just they turn off. You know what I mean? And so what you need to do is just kind of be um, level-headed or just regular when you walk in.
Right.
And so I can notice myself, you know, going up to an INTJ and acting that way. And then, you know, my INFP friend over here, where I can make decisions with my inferior function, and it's not going to kill me because they're not judgmental. I'll go up to INFPs and just be the most ridiculous person you've ever met. Like normally in public, I won't make a retarded face because if it's that disturbing, if I make a face that's that disturbing, it's not going to help me at all. Everyone's just going to be weirded out. But INFPs are the types that love you just being yourself. And so I really relish in INFPs because I'm kind of learning about myself when I'm around them. And
well, also you gotta keep in mind that too, that INFPs, they value authenticity.
Oh yeah.
Because that FI is so dominant, they want to make sure that it's consistent. What you are acting is actually who you are.
Yeah.
And unlike FE, which is more concerned with harmony, FI is more concerned with authenticity.
Yeah, definitely.
So even FI may be irritated by FE at times because of that particular thing. It's like FE's trying to accommodate, but they realize they feel like they're faking it. Like, that's not who you are. Why are you doing this? Why are you acting this way? It's kind of why ENTJs don't like compliments. Typically, we just don't like compliments. And because that FI, if you're in tune with FI and you realize that person's saying something, they might be trying to manipulate you for whatever reason, or if they're saying it because they're genuine. But generally, we look for that and we judge it based on FI. So is this incoming compliment have a purpose? Do they have a motive behind it, or are they saying it because they're sincere?
I question it every time. But I don't think I have a hard time with them. You know what I mean? I think that sometimes you can tell with the way that they say it, and you're like, oh no, there's something going on here. And that's just FI being aware of,
Right. And that's what I mean. Instead of normal reaction and not thinking about it and just saying thanks, which is what I always do because it's socially adept. You say thank you when someone gives you a compliment. I'm not like, why'd you give that to me? But I'm telling you, in my mind, I'm going, now what's the purpose? What did you really want out of this? Like there's a reason why you're giving me this compliment. I want to know what it is. And
I can see that.
Yeah, and that's what goes through my head when I get them, and they may be sincere, but I want to run it through a series of feeling-based perspective and judge it based on values that I've learned through a period of time, and and that's where I feel like a lot of people don't understand that ENTJs also feel the same way. We feel that we are who we are through TE, and so that's why typically most ENTJs will be critical before they're complimentary. And that's who they are. Authentically, that's who they are. They feel like they're the person who fixes things, not the person who is trying to make people feel better. So we're comfortable being critical,
Oh yeah, I can see that. And I've learned with certain types, like my INFP sister, if I just come out and say it, she's gonna get upset. So like, I strategically think it all through. Like my extrovert thinking, I walk up to her and I go, I really don't want to upset you with this. Like, I just really feel like I should tell you what's on my mind, and something I've noticed about the way that you do this or the way that you do that, and just show them that first. Okay, I'm not trying to just tear them down. I want them to get better. I communicate that idea, and then I tell them what I was thinking, and then I see the potential for if they were to grow and change that, what would happen. And it's a whole different. If I had somebody else I was talking to, I might just come out and be like, you're doing this, stop. Just stop doing that. You're just messing it up. And what I've recognized, you can't just decide to do that because I've started to care a lot more about my network, I guess you'd say, like my relationships, and making sure that they're strong so that I don't get in a tough spot and they're not there for me. Because if I come off as a jerk, they might be thinking they don't like me, and I might not even know. You know what I mean? And then when I need them, they're not there. So
that's interesting.
I think it's really interesting when it comes to people look at ENTJs and they're just like, it's like you don't even want to believe it. You know what I mean? Like looking from the outside, you don't even want to believe it. Like, you're telling me you make friends so that you get advantages, but it's not manipulation. It's like you're actually like, you care about the relationship, but you do it in the first place. Yeah, you see benefit. Exactly. And it's not, and that's the thing, is it gets marked as manipulation sometimes, but when people understand that it's not, they're just sitting there like, I don't even understand how this is real. Like I don't it's too robotic. You're not telling the truth. You know, it's
a good example would be like the video you made about the rapper guy, the ENTP.
Yeah.
Okay, so they may naturally feel like you're just their friend because you think you can make money off of them because they're good at what they do.
Yeah.
You know, and of course I'm going to exploit that opportunity. But at the same time, part of it is because if you really look at it, I want them to succeed personally.
Yeah, definitely. You
But
see
why
the
not
potential and you don't see it going
why
anywhere.
not benefit from it though? Why not? It's an opportunity in the marketplace, and that person's not going to do anything without it anyway. It's going to take work on my end. I might as well get paid for it.
Yeah.
You know, like, so
Exactly.
but at the same time, I'm helping this person.
And
So
I don't know if this is a perceiving sort of thing to do, but you know, judgers, actually I may be wrong here, so catch me if I am. Judgers, you know, perceivers aren't necessarily about the action, so they're more just to take in like everything. So for an ENTP rapper, he'd be sitting there taking in all the information he can so that he can develop his rapping skills, but not necessarily jumping into the action and actually, you know, working on building those up. But I've noticed something with perceivers. If you help them perceive that they're not doing things, they'll change. And I've talked about this before with an INFP friend of mine. You know, he wasn't doing anything. Like he was playing games all day, and he had unlimited internet access. His parents didn't care. You know, they were just very nonchalant with his whole like routine of just being ridiculous and indulging in video games all day. And so I remember, you know, he was a really cool guy, and then you know we were in Italy, and he got a shipment in, and he got his computer, and he got his hookup, and then he was just so involved with games, it was ridiculous. And you know, I had stayed the night that night, and you know, the next morning I was leaving, and I was like, "Hey, dude, you know what? You can't keep doing this." I was like, "I'm sorry, I have to be honest with you, dude." I was like, "You're not doing crap." I was like, "I mean, really, are you gonna do enough? Like, is this an opportunity to make money in your life? Are you gonna succeed? You know, with video games, you're gonna get good enough so you can make money." I was like, "Are you good enough? I mean, it's possible, but do you really think you're at that level?" And he said, "No, I'm not." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like, "So you have unlimited internet access." I was like, "Your parents don't care what you're doing in here. They rarely check on you." I was like, "You know, you'll stumble down to the kitchen at 3 a.m. and grab food and make a bunch of noise, and they're like, 'Oh, it's just him. That's how he is.'" And I was like, "I don't understand how you're not expanding and learning and growing and becoming better, like getting skills, you know." I was like, "You know, you listen to great music. Why don't you make music?" You know, I come back the next time and he's still on his computer, but this time he's not playing games. This time he like changed completely, and he started like studying Ableton and the way it works and just spending hours and hours and hours. So, you know, he kind of misses the game, so he plays 15 minutes a day. But besides that, he's up all hours of the night, you know, making music. And his parents
yeah,
hear
and
him playing his keyboard.
I wouldn't say that that's true for all Ps. I would definitely say that this friend of yours probably respects you and your drive and ambition.
Yeah.
And he took your advice and realized it and then perceived it. With all Ps, I mean, honestly, their perspective can be entirely different than ours because ours is about moving forward, right?
Yeah.
And that's the main thing. Ours is about pressing forward. But let's say that the INFP's values is you be harmonious with yourself and then really enjoy what you do in life. And that's and it doesn't matter about how much money you make or anything, because one of the things you said was, how are you making any money? That may not be important to them at all. And for us, that's hard to understand because we want to press forward. And so that's so that's the main thing, is that they want to press forward and they want to say, okay, you've got this idea of what it is. Like, okay, I'm going to absolutely press you. I want you to succeed. But to them, maybe success is a different definition.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Yeah, and that's where the big problem is with a lot of people, is just really ENTJ specifically is like, we're naturally thinking, okay, this person isn't doing anything, and they may take that offensively because they may think I'm happy just what I'm doing. Like what I learned in business was you can't just motivate people through money. You can't just say, you know what, I think you deserve more money and you're going to stick with the company. You know, there's all kinds of things that incentivize people, whether it's finding harmony in the company or finding some other thing. It's about really just finding those things that they value. From an INFP standpoint specifically, it's being what their values is, being consistent with those values, not necessarily how much money. They don't really care about the money a lot of times, you know? So it's just understanding that they have a totally different worldview than we do. And that's what can get tough at times with them.
Yeah, I could see that. You know, definitely, probably I've influenced him maybe to want to be the best, you know, electronic musician now. So I don't know. I don't know what his goal is now, but maybe I'll have to step in at some point and be like, hey, why don't you actually share this? Why don't you actually put this stuff out there? You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like you know, we all balance each other out really well. And if you can find
Mm-hmm.
your ideal type, and I say this because for me, I feel like that's INFP, but like it doesn't have to be them. And I don't really know how you feel about this, but the ideal type for like relationships, I think really balances out the other functions pretty well. So for
Mm-hmm.
INFPs, you know, they kind of lack the structure where they just go with how they feel about things, and sometimes they get stressed out in environments where, you know, there's lots of INFPs normally get stressed out when they let a lot of people in, you know, when they don't just have those few people that they rely on. And some, I've gotten comments on my YouTube channel, a lot of INFPs haven't found their few friends, but normally
Right.
INFPs have 4 or 5 really close friends, 1 or 2, like 1 to 5, you know. And you know, I can see that when INFPs open up and have a whole bunch of people in their life, it really complicates their life, and it gets them really stressed, and they,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they get really, it's just a really hard time in their life. I feel like, you know, my friend Jespri, she lives in another state, you know, but we were so close when we were in Italy. She'll call me up now, and I'll talk to her, and I'll find out what her problem is, and I'll give her advice as to how I feel like she should fix it, you know. And I still do that because I'm sitting up there strategizing what the problem is and where to attack it, you know. And she's like, how do I feel about this? And if I can
Mm-hmm.
say no, because, you know, she'll say, yeah, but if I do that, you know, so and so will feel this way. And I'll go, no, because if you don't do that, here's what'll happen. You know what I mean? And I'm helping them flex their TE down there at the bottom,
Right.
you know. And then sometimes, you know, like I said, I'll relish in INFPs where I can be, you know, spontaneous and just, you know, myself, and they're okay with that because they love that authenticity. It's like a really great balance. So do you feel like the ideal types, like for relationships, are the ones that balance each other out, or you think INFP just so happen to be the ENTJs?
I think that it's important to have a multitude of people with different functions in your life, so you learn how to flex.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, especially people who have your tertiary or inferior function. This is why ESTPs or INFPs can become great friends with ENTJ specifically, is because of that. Like you just mentioned, is having the ability to be able to help each other flex, but it also requires a little bit of maturity. And I think Myers-Briggs is a great bridge for that to cross, because if you didn't have Myers-Briggs, you wouldn't know that person's an INFP, and they wouldn't know you're an ENTJ. So they may say that, you know, you're not naturally good at this function. You just are, you know, insensitive, or you're not caring, or whatever else they may think about your particular character. But because of Myers-Briggs, it's giving you the opportunity to be able to understand that they're helping you flex and giving you a different perspective, and vice versa.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's just so cool, you know, to see all this, you know, just communication with people,
Right.
and, you know, helping each other grow and understand each other, and not writing people off because of their differences. And that's a big part of Myers-Briggs. And I mean, us as ENTJs, it's great for um, being leaders, because, you know, you can't, sometimes instead of just dismissing their idea and moving forward, you know, you can
Mm-hmm.
say, I see what you mean there, and I'll talk to you about it later, or something like that. You know what I mean? And
Right.
understanding them on a deeper level, it's really good for leadership, because you can make better connections with people, and just create this all well-rounded, like, understanding and relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. And I just want to throw out there that any type can be a great leader. It's just they have to be able to learn how to communicate, because communication is key in business. And
Oh
once they
yeah,
learn how to
definitely.
communicate with the other types, they can anybody, any type, any of the 16 types can lead an organization, lead a company. They're going to have a different approach doing it naturally. What comes to them naturally, things they're aware of, and possibilities they're aware of, and weaknesses and strengths, and that kind of thing, as a person, and as from a cognitive function standpoint as well.
Yeah. And you know, I've talked to types before and given them advice on how to speak with other types. They're like, man, they're like, I don't have a million different strategies for people, you know. And I'm like, I'm trying to communicate, like, man, you know, if you really understand them, you don't have to have a strategy for every different person, but you know, just an over like a very basic understanding of, you know, the way they think may help, you know. And
Right.
MBTI is a great tool for um, just, yeah, you know, if you want to become a leader and understanding the other people and their perspectives may really help you.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And understanding one thing that I don't like is the biases that people have in MBTI. Like people say that, oh, I don't get along with INFPs, or I don't get along with SFJs, or I don't get along with this particular type. And to me, it's like, okay, what can you learn from that type, and how can you learn to grow? And naturally, you're going to have some clashes with people who have different functional and have different preferences than you. But if you know how to flex, you can work with them. And I think that people always ask me, and I mean, friends of mine ask me, they say, so what is it like? What is a relationship between this type and this type like? And I'm like, I can't tell you that. There's too many variables in human character to tell you that. I was like, I can tell you some communication difficulties you may have, and I can also tell you some communication advantages you may have. But I was like, as for what it's actually going to be like, it requires maturity, and that's it. Any relationship does. I mean, doesn't matter if you're both ENTJs or INFPs or whatever. It just, you know, there is no ideal type. There is an ideal person, and that's the key.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, you've got you know, some that are more developed and some that lack direction, you know, and so there's, like you said, there's a lot of different variables as to, like,
And so it frustrates me because people put everybody in a box. I can't date an SFJ anymore. Yeah, I can't date an SFJ, or I can't date an NTP, or I can't date. And I'm like, why are you putting people in a box like that? I mean, you literally just ruled out 1/16 of the world just now. You know, like, yeah, it's exactly. Like, okay, good job. Okay, you've ruled out those people too. You're on your way to ruling out everyone, and you keep that up.
Yeah, and
you know, so
you know, a lot of people that they're always asking me, like, oh, how can you say that I'm an INTP if, you know, if my introverted, like, I'm not that introverted. I'm not always introverted. You know what I mean? Like, everyone's a little bit introverted, a little bit extroverted. I'm like, exactly. And I'm just trying to, like, you know, I feel like I have to explain the whole thing and how there's, you know, extroverted functions versus introverted, and you just prefer the introverted one over the extroverted one, but you still use it. And so, you know, it's not just boxes. And you know, when you go online, you know, that 16personalities.com test, that really is putting people in boxes, you know, because it tells you how they are, but not necessarily any more depth than that.
16 personalities types like the majority of people I know as ENTJs.
I've gotten a lot of INFPs from that website as well.
Yeah, and it's like everybody I know is getting typed as an ENTJ, and it's like, okay, let's just not use that website.
Yeah,
you know, because there's just so many things about it that are, and it's, the questions are not tested. There's no real accuracy involved in that. It's like, what answer is the better answer, you know, and then whoever feels like that's a better answer, that's what you're going to get. And it's just very, very, very fundamental. It's based on Myers-Briggs, but it really isn't Myers-Briggs. It's just 16 personalities. And it's just a knockoff test. And I try to have people avoid that site for that.
I don't even use it anymore.
Yeah.
Got a comment on YouTube from Gray Planet. Shout out to Gray Planet.
No, well, I got a comment earlier just now from some guy that was flaming our conversation here. It's funny, but yeah, he just posted a bunch of sick comments. So
really,
yeah, I don't know. Well, his screen name is sick too, so he's just a sick person. you know, that's sick, all there is. Dude. Yeah, like, this guy made the screen name. He took the time to make this screen name, and then he took the time to, I mean, he really is a sick, twisted person. So, you know, I'm not worried about it, but
just the idea of this is sick, man.
Yeah, I just, you know, some people just have too much time on their hands, and we're talking about pressing people and helping them go forward. There is particular people out there who just won't. And this particular guy is one of them. And Just so YouTube can know, his screen name was Grade Butt Under Dick.
What?
Yeah, Grade Butt Under Dick is his screen name, and this guy just flamed our conversation here. I guess he has some weird infatuations that I don't really know. So,
whoa, is this all true? I'm so confused.
Yeah. I mean, I got notifications on my phone on this particular video just now because it's live. He posted on this. So if you want to find it, you can pull up YouTube and you can look at this video and you can see the comments on there. But yeah, it's a true story. And so the thing is just people, you know.
He's like, oh, let me delete it now.
No, he's not going to do that. He's going to probably flame some more just because I called him out. But that's all right. You know, they're going to have their way of doing things. And I don't hold anything against him. He's probably just a ENTP, just liking to flame people. You know, I mean, he might have fun doing it, and that's cool. I mean, I don't mind being at the expense of that because it doesn't affect me.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a point where, you know, there's just some people that I just think they could do better things with their time and they can contribute better. But you know, if they want to flame others and try to take others down, then that makes them happy. Then by all means, target me because it's not going to faze me.
Yeah. No, for real. You know, ENTPs are so funny sometimes. That specific rapper one I was telling you about.
Right.
Man, we're just sitting there, and a lot of times he'll be just sitting there, and he'll just look you in the eye, and he won't do anything else but look you in the eye, and with the blankest face. And when you're sitting over there dying laughing because you don't understand this blank face, that's when he'll like start to kind of smile. And you know, sometimes we'll be in a really serious setting, and he'll just freaking scream. And he does it. I think it's his extrovert intuition just scanning for different possibilities as to things he does and just jumping on it. You know, and it's so like it's so he's got like this thing where everyone's like, oh, that's just how he is. You know, like he's just so funny. You know, because it really doesn't matter. He'll just do the most random, crazy stuff that you just never expected. And so it's pretty cool.
What I'd like to get done here in the future is actually have a video based on Enneagram.
Oh yeah, I don't really know that much. I got to do some research.
Yeah, but I'd like to knock out another video, one of these hangouts maybe, and get into Enneagram topics because there's a lot on different personalities inside MBTI that you can actually utilize with Enneagram as well. Oh
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you know, we have cognitive functions with MBTI, but you have more personal dynamic with like Enneagram, and that is it's another element of self-discovery. So I'm all for it.
Oh yeah, definitely. You know, it'd be nice to cover the different like positives and negatives of each, you know, because for you you might not necessarily care about the relationships as much, but you get more done because you're so challenge oriented.
Yeah, or I pick the wrong challenges and don't get crap done because I'm still so busy trying to conquer something that doesn't really need to be conquered.
What's an example?
For example, if I get a logic puzzle and it's really freaking hard, I'll spend a whole day trying to solve it without, yeah. And why? That's not productive. I don't need to solve that logic puzzle, but I just don't let it go until it's solved. And
like a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, it's just, there's certain things that are, and I don't want anybody to give me the answer either. And so it's like, I just want to keep working at it and working at it and working at it. And that's not productive. So I avoid things like that because I know my personality. It's like, you're going to get attached to solving this thing in itself. And it's not productive.
That's interesting though, because when I think about that, I think about when I first picked up the Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm going to learn this so that I can, because I saw Pursuit of Happiness.
Yeah.
He gets a job because he stood out, because he was able to solve the Rubik's Cube. So, you know, I'm like, well, I want that. So, you know, I like learned to solve the Rubik's Cube so that, you know, I can bring it out at random times and people be like, you can do that? You know, with like people that may not know, just every once in a while, if I need that extra curve, you could stand out more. And so it's interesting because you like can't put it down because you just challenge accepted. But for me, it's like, you know, I can do this to like utilize it to like look better.
Yeah. See, I don't even, if I knew how to solve a Rubik's Cube, nobody would know it.
Yeah.
I don't even have like, I mean, I don't even have any social media for that reason. I don't care. Like, I have zero care about having a Facebook or a whatever. The only one I use is LinkedIn, but I mean, ultimately, I don't care about the image. I don't take pictures. Yeah, I don't take pictures. I don't do selfies. I don't care about any of that crap. You know, like I do care about things that actually result in a change, though. For like dressing nicer has a positive and a personal impression that actually puts you ahead. That's a results oriented thing that's based in image, and I'm aware of that. But then there's things that are just, to me, why do I need to have a Snapchat? Why? I don't care. I don't care if anybody knows what I'm doing or not. I don't care if I'm in Fiji, nobody's gonna know. You know, like,
Yeah.
and then someday they'll hear me say that. Oh yeah,
I'm busy. I'm busy.
Yeah. So an example would be like,
cool. Bye.
Yeah. So an example would be like if I were out in this particular area and, you know, and I'm working on something, I'm challenge oriented and I'm doing a particular task. And people always say like, wow, you have a lot of skills. Like you do this and this and this. What don't you do? And and they come out just randomly like, oh yeah, I've done that before. And they're like, when I've known you for 5 years and I didn't know you could do that. You know, and it's because I don't ever feel the need to show any of it. It just stays in my head. Like, and it's just a challenge that I put under my belt and I'm like, move on. So,
wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. And that's that Enneagram 8. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. You'd be like, hey, look what I can do, you know, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I don't see anything wrong with it. I see that there's an advantage to that. And there's also a disadvantage, like any Enneagram type. There's disadvantages and advantages, you know, and, you know, the 8 can come off as too intense. It can come off as like, it's just too intense. Whereas a 3 can come off as too arrogant or cocky, you know, like,
I try not to make myself look like that.
Yeah. I try not to be intense, but it's hard. Like I did an interview the other day and I was interviewing a candidate and I went through the ringer with him and it was maybe a 2-hour interview. And my interviews are really specific. I mean, I really screen out candidates in the way that I hire. And so I went through the interview and then I, you know, passed him on and I screened him out essentially. And so what happened was that he had told a friend and that knew him, he goes, man, that guy was intense. And I tried my best not to be intense. I tried to, you know, you want a coffee? I just still came off as intense. And that's just part of that Enneagram is like just avoiding, trying to work through those advantages or disadvantages rather and make them, you know, good things. So, you got a comment on here from Yunmai Sachao that says, who is Trey 4L? So
that's me.
Trey 4L is right here. I don't know if this guy's still on this channel, but he just commented. And then Grade Butt Under Dick decided that he wanted to put one more comment on the channel.
Oh, man.
And he said, well, that's not even appropriate to say out loud, but I am reading these comments as they do come up. And so just if you do want to say something, just comment and I'll be happy to answer it as we go through this conversation. So if you do have any questions, that's always something I'll try to get to.
If you want to know what Trey 4L means, I'll explain that really quick. Trey 4L is it's something that my ISTP friend Josh pointed out to me. It's something he picked up as like a stylish sort of thing. He uses it as well. You can follow him on Instagram. His name's Josh 4L. And thing is, it's a symbol of like for life. So like, I'm me for life. My name is Trey. I'm me for life. And like you identify me with my name. And my name is defined by all the actions that I take and all the things that I do and who I am. And so I'm me for life and I'm self-defining. So it's like this idea that, you know, my name and its significance and where it goes in life is going to be based on my development and who I become as a person. So
that's cool. Idea. Yeah, and I figured that's what it was. I mean, I intuited that.
Oh, yeah. Man. All right. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know if your viewers know, you know, that particularly. Maybe you should make a video just explaining what 4L means and the significance behind it. You know,
I think I've already talked about it in some of my videos, but
yeah, your channel used to be like just Trey something, I think Trey Pierce or something, and then
no, it was a different username. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna ask you something though. Do you think, someone suggested this to me, a friend of mine, do you think that it would be a good idea to record like my day and put it on YouTube?
It depends. Is it
to see,
eventful?
like, that's the thing. I feel like it would be weird carrying a camera around, and then, I mean, I'd have to edit it, you know, cut out like boring scenes in class and just leave the stuff where I'm not doing anything. But like, you know, where I'm not like working. And I don't know, it's just like someone suggested that, and would that be a good video to show who I am and the kind of stuff that I partake in a day? You know what I mean?
Is it your objective to make the world know who you are?
I mean, they can. I don't.
What's the point of doing it? That's what I'm asking it. I mean, do you have a purpose?
When they suggested it to me, it sounded like they were saying that it would be to better understand ENTJs. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But
That's too limited though, because I mean, you know how many ENTJs are in the world?
yeah, and they're all they have their differences. But you know, maybe because you know people may, I know curious as to actually who you are and like the way you act when you're not on camera.
Right.
And maybe that would be something they could see. Like maybe when I talk socially, they want to know, what is the rest of my day socially like? Like what do I do when, you know, this happens in a day? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
maybe making that video. What do you think about that? Do you think that'd be a good idea?
I think it's an idea. I mean, you can always use that video to also point out certain aspects of your cognitive functions operating in daily life. And you can see, like, here's where I've used TE as an example to make this happen, or
That's
here's
a good
where
idea.
I've used, and making it an educational experience and not just hey, I'm sure there's going to be funny stuff in it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, but just making it
I don't
also
know if I want to put that on YouTube. That's kind of a
invasive.
maybe a little bit. Like
Yeah.
I don't care with the people that are around me, but then when I get to the point where like I don't know, I'm making a video being myself all day.
Well, you're Trey Farrell, man,
I'm not
for
sure I
life.
want to put that out there.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm gonna wrap up this call, and you know, we'll talk in a little bit. So,
All right,
but
cool.
ultimately, you know, again, anybody who's watching this, that's Trey Farrell. You can see his YouTube channel. You just type in Trey 4L on YouTube. You should be able to find it. As for me, just look me up under my name, Chad Crandall, or just type in ENTJ. I'll be somewhere. And yeah, go ahead.
I've got a Snapchat. You can add me at Trey4L.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk to y'all later. Thanks for viewing.
Yep. Ciao.